Peter Parker kind of made a rubbish Spider-Man to begin with. Let me add some context to that. So today we're looking into issue 2 of the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, the comic book run that serves as the prequel to the Disney Plus show. And in this issue, he makes one of his first debuts as the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. So let's see how it goes when he comes across a group of professionals known as the Enforcers. Let's not waste any more time. Let's go! We kick things off at Tripp's Tournament of Titans, a gritty underground wrestling event hosted by Tripp himself. Inside a towering steel cage stands Crusher Hogan, the reigning heavyweight champ. Towering and brutal, Hogan is ready to smash his next opponent, and that opponent is none other than Peter Parker. As soon as the bell rings, Hogan charges. Peter tries to dodge, but Hogan's sheer size and strength overwhelm him. Before Peter knows it, he's being scooped up and slammed against the unforgiving steel. Dazed and aching, Peter watches helplessly as Hogan carries him to the top of the cage, threatening to toss him down for a dramatic finish. In this moment, Spidey's thoughts are racing. He's not just worried about the fall, he's thinking about Aunt May, thinking about liking this video, about the bills piling up, about how this prize money isn't just for fun, it's survival. Summoning strength he didn't know he had, Spider-Man picks up Hogan above his head, preparing to throw him from the top of the cage. But in his panic, Peter overdoes it. Hogan sails far higher than intended. Realizing his mistake, Spidey springs into action and just barely manages to catch Hogan before he hits the ground. The crowd erupts, but Peter doesn't stick around for the applause. He slips out quietly, still reeling from just how dangerously close he'd come to hurting someone with his newfound strength. Crusher Hogan doesn't take the loss lightly. He storms after Peter outside the venue, still furious. Almost treating it like a sparring match, he sidesteps Hogan's charge and casually tosses the angry wrestler into a nearby dumpster. Over the following days, Peter works hard to better understand his abilities. He tests his strength, lifting objects far heavier than himself. He learns that he can cling to objects and walls with remarkable grip, but something keeps nagging at him. His strength is dangerous. If he's going to help people without seriously hurting them, he needs an edge. That's when inspiration strikes. Why not invent something that can snag criminals from a distance? Drawing on his science background, Peter gets to work crafting his first batch of web fluid. Early tests on criminals show promise, but there's still plenty of tweaking to be done. Meanwhile, Peter reconnects with Nico Minoru, who shares some surprising news. They've been transferred to Rockford T-Bale High School after the destruction of Midtown High. Despite this new school's athletic focus, its academic reputation gives them hope. Maybe this isn't such a bad change after all. On their first day, things heat up quickly. Tripp, the wrestling event host, spots Peter and accuses him of parking his car in Tripp's usual spot. Of course, Tripp has no clue Peter's the same masked kid who beat up the wrestling heavyweight champion last week. Peter tries to defuse things, insisting he doesn't even have a driver's license. But Tripp makes it clear that transfer students aren't welcome here. That's when Nico steps in. Sharp as ever, she fires back, revealing that Tripp is nothing more than a spoiled nepo baby, riding his rich parents' coattails. Then she drops the bombshell. She's got video proof that Tripp's so-called best friend has been mooching off of him while secretly dating his sister. Miko came prepared and she's not about to let anyone push her or Peter around. The duo shares a knowing smile, confident that they can face whatever high school drama comes their way. That evening, Peter fine-tunes his web fluid formula and sets out to prove himself as the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. But someone else has been keeping tabs on him, Silvio Manfredi. Furious that Spider-Man's interference has disrupted his plans, he hires the Enforcers, a trio of bruisers known as the Ox, Fancy Dan, and Montana, to take Spider-Man down. Spider-Man heads out with 2 gas canisters strapped to his back to keep his web shooters filled. It doesn't take long before he spots trouble, the Ox and Fancy Dan roughing up a local shopkeeper. Spidey swings in and plants a solid kick into Ox's face, but Fancy Dan proves to be more skilled than Peter expected, dodging web shots and landing a sharp kick of his own. Meanwhile, Montana watches silently from a distance, calculating his move. Spidey regroups and sprays a wide net of webs, trapping Fancy Dan. But before he can celebrate, Montana steps in, cracks his whip, and damages the tubing connecting Spider-Man's web canisters. The Ox seizes the opportunity, knocking Spider-Man to the ground and then freeing Fancy Dan from the webs. As Spidey tries to lunge back into the fight, he's overwhelmed and surrounded. Peter's mind races. He thought he was ready for this. He thought his web shooters would give him the edge. But as he lies there, battered and surrounded, that old self-doubt creeps back in. Was he truly prepared for this life? Was he ever ready to be Spider-Man? And if you're craving more Spider-Man content, make sure to check out this playlist or check out my channel for a whole array of content covering Marvel characters and storylines. But for the meantime, peace, peace, peace.